It was so unreal, like, we still have trouble comprehending it today. We were just, like, so overwhelmed and so grieved about what had happened, and it almost seems like it's just this person that we knew is no longer. On a daily basis, we have to work through that, and just knowing that our future from here on out is gonna look completely different than we ever would have expected.
Hey guys, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. I feel like it was a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, 2 months ago, I don't even know. It's been months. Jill Duggar started speaking out about her family. And we started to hear her point of view about growing up Duggar, about not getting paid for being on the show, about feeling like she couldn't go to her parents' house because there was triggers there, and how she's in therapy to deal with her issues that she experienced from growing up and everything that was a result of her dad and Josh. Jessa and Jill, when everything broke in 2015, were the two girls that came forward and spoke out for their family. And they defended their brother publicly. They sort of downplayed everything that happened. And they also, in that same interview, really talked about their forgiveness for Josh and everything, because they had said that this happened years ago and everything was fine. And then shortly after that, then more information came out about Josh cheating on his wife, Ashley Madison. There was the dancer in Pennsylvania that made really serious claims against Josh. And I think her case against them, or against Josh, was eventually settled. She later came out in an article and got really graphic about what she says Josh did to her that night, or alleged that he had done to her. And it wasn't pretty. It was pretty awful. And I think it put the kids in a very precarious situation. Obviously, they are not their brother and they can't control their brother's behavior, but they had to deal with his behavior. And Jill on Counting On talked about how, like, the very first episode of this show said, you know, had she known what Josh had done and was doing in his private life, she wouldn't have stuck up for him. And she didn't have all the information. And she seemed upset because she didn't have all of that information, and then did that interview with Megyn Kelly. So knowing Jill's experience and Jessa's being the focal point of the family and the face of the family in the midst of this tragedy and the scandal, Jinger, who was one of the victims of Josh, didn't do a whole lot of speaking. She was pretty quiet, along with her sister Joanna. They have never really openly or publicly spoken about what Josh has done to them. Only Jessa and Jill have gone on record, but a lawsuit that their father filed on their behalf in federal court named those 4 girls as the victims. So it was interesting because she broke her silence and spoke about how she got through the scandal. And I'm starting to realize that if you want to get answers from Jinger, you're just not going to get them. Jinger is very calculated and careful in everything that she says. And in a part of her Instagram Live, she talked about how when everyone labeled her the rebel Duggar, it made her more careful.
Nor do I think that would be healthy for me. But it was challenging because, like, when you would hear stories, like we had some friends or relatives who would say stuff, and like, oh, did you hear about that? And Ginger's painted as a rebel or whatever it was. And I was like, really? Like, where'd they get that from? And so just being more careful with what I would do, what I would say, and even who I trusted. That's something that you'll read more about in the book. I don't want to give it all away.
So Jinger, who is very aware that she's watched publicly, has this ability to talk without saying very much. And her husband, Jeremy, does the very same thing. So in an interview with USWeekly, they asked Jinger about the scandal, and she actually said that her family is closer as a result of it, which I have a very hard time believing.
It was definitely walking through that season. It was one of the hardest times of our lives, and in those times I thought, man, like that really meant the most, and like our family was way closer because of that. And in spite of that, I guess you'd say.
I might think that some of them might be closer, but you have one sister that's completely left the family. So I wouldn't say that your family's closer. I think it actually caused a rift in your family, but that's just me. So she said that during that season of her life, it was very hard to walk through, and there was friends that did help them, that were around them, that brought them meals, that sat with them, that were there for them, which meant a lot. And in fairness, she should not be held responsible for what her brother did to her. She should not be held responsible for his actions that he took when he was married to Anna that had nothing to do with her. So it's not necessarily fair to blame Jinger for what her brother has done. So it's, I'm guessing from that perspective, hard because you have the rest of the kids being blamed for the actions of one, which is not fair, when the onus really should fall on the parents. And the responsibility publicly to speak out about it should have been Josh and the parents, and they should have been the ones to take responsibility, and they really didn't. Jim Bob instead deflected and blamed everyone. He went after the public officials for releasing the information, which was heavily redacted and provided through a Freedom of Information Act. They actually lost their case in court. It went to the Court of Appeals, and it came down that they could not sue various people that were involved in this because they were doing work that was within their right as a government employee. And I'm not sure where the case is at right now. There was still one or two people named in it, but many of their claims were dropped or dismissed via the appeal. With all of that being said, Jim wanted to place the blame on everyone else, but he didn't really want to take ownership for his responsibility or the fact that he actually put the kids on TV in the middle of this investigation. He misled the public about what was going on behind the scenes. He was not honest about what Josh was doing. He had the kids filming when they were going through some serious trauma. And, you know, so Ginger's saying, well, it wasn't popular for people to like us. It wasn't popular for people to be around us. I think the thing is that it wasn't popular because your dad made the wrong choice. And it's really the dad that should take the responsibility, not the kids. But she also said that it made the family closer, which I think is just complete and utter bull. Like, you can't have a family member leave as a result of that and say that the family is closer. Some of them might be closer, and those that will follow what Jim, Bob, and Michelle want will be closer, and who believe that they were the victims of the media and believe that they were victims of everyone but Josh and believe that their parents didn't do anything wrong. Of course they're going to draw closer, but unfortunately, I don't necessarily believe this is true because I know there's open wounds in this family that Jill has been very open about. So she wants to say, everything's fine, everything's great, it's wonderful, you know, our family's super close, it was a really tough season, but we got through it, and it's hard to be in the public eye, it's hard for people to talk about us, but we manage our way through it, and it's hard because we feel like we have to respond, but we don't have to respond, but we do have to respond. And honestly, again, I feel for Jinger, but I also put the onus again on her parents. Now, if Jinger wants to be public and not share everything, that's totally her right. I think what bothers me consistently about the Duggars is their consistent misleading of the public about acting like it's really not that big of a deal what happened, acting like it's not affecting anyone in this family when you know it clearly has to be affecting everyone. Jinger openly admitted to struggling with eating, and girls that go through, or anyone that goes through any sort of SA, one of the things that can happen is they can develop eating issues because it's something that they can control and they don't have to deal with that feeling. I'm not saying that that's why she went there, but it's clear that her parents never got her help. She never went through regular therapy. She still hasn't gone through regular therapy. She has spoken openly about struggling with anxiety, depression, and she consistently talks about leaning on her faith. She never talks about using medication. Her husband is very against medication and very against psychology and very against that mental health is even a thing. He believes it's all from Satan. It's wild, or you don't believe enough.
You're in the dregs, you're depressed, you're sad, you're beaten down. Examine your life. Is there sin that's going unchecked in your life that you're just allowing to live and to grow? Oh, this is certainly a cause of depression in our soul. Confess your sin. Lay it bare before the Lord. Well, sixthly and finally, for the cause, unbelief. If it were not for unbelief, what could the devil possibly say to you that would cause you despair?
So knowing that she's gone through all of this, and then knowing she moved from her dad to Jeremy, I just kind of feel like Jinger has fallen through the cracks and is still in a way almost stuck in this state of being a teenager because all of this trauma happened when she was a teenager on the show or in her early 20s. And you start to realize that the lasting effects of them learning to obey their parents, speak the company line, not disparage one another, which is what they're taught, leads to a very toxic environment where they believe and keep each other's secrets. And I can't understand how any family member would be okay with their parents and their other family members allowing one of their family members to leave because of all of that, while harboring and maintaining a relationship with the man that caused all of the problems. Josh still is at family events. His family is still on the show, even though Josh is not. Josh is still living on the property. Jill is been pushed out. So that's kind of my thought on everything. In another video, we'll get into what they had to say about Derek and Jill, and that will be coming up later today. And then up next, we're going to talk about Amber Portwood on Teen Mom 2. Tell me your thoughts about all of this in the comments below. Bye, guys.